Detroit's citizens support 9 full-time council members who share a staff of 104 personnel. While the city faces a financial crisis, city council members take an unconscious step and request a 23% increase in its already expanded personal annual budget. The proposed 2006 budget represents a 75% increase since 1996. This puts the Detroit City Council members' annual budget at $1.7 million per council member, with little or no accountability, giving city council members the largest staff and largest budget per capita of any city in the United States. While Detroit's political machine plans on cutting more than $560 million from the Detroit Public Schools 5-year budget, massive layoffs of police, firemen, low-paid transportation service personnel, street cleaners, trash collectors, school closing, recreation center closures, and other public services being discontinued in order to save money and give the Detroit City Council their much-needed raise, while confronted with an unemployment rate of above 20%. When you put the Detroit City Council's requested personal annual budget in perspective, cost for city council members is $17.32 per capita, compared to Dallas, Texas, $2.08 per capita. The mayor of Detroit shouldn't feel slighted, since his figures show a cost of $7.11 compared to Chicago's $1.77 per capita. While the city of Detroit starts the 2006 year with a projected deficit of $230 to $350 million. The FBI has investigated, indicted, and/or prosecuted some of Detroit City Council members with various charges of corruption, extortion, embezzlement, bribery, fraud, illegal use of government funds, credit card and payroll diversion. Starting from the first mayor of Detroit in 1806 through 1930, most mayors served a one-year term. After that period, the term lengths grew to its current time of 4 years. Since 1806, Detroit has had 51 elected mayors. Coleman Young was Detroit's first black mayor and the longest ruling mayor, ruling from 1974 to 1993. A single man after being divorced twice, Mayor Coleman Young had an affair with a city employee during his administration and produced a son. In 1989, the court ordered genetic testing to confirm Mayor Young was the father. His son was called Joe Loving and eventually changed his name to Coleman Young Jr., who is now considering a political future. During Mayor Young's 20-year reign, well over 500,000 people moved out of Detroit. Coleman Young's reign could be considered the start of the implosion of a city that was known as a paradise. Jobs were lost. Businesses closed their doors or moved out of Detroit to the suburbs and fled to freedom and a new world. During Coleman Young's administration, Detroit was separated from the suburbs by a fence that can be referred to as Colemanocracy. Distancing itself from the suburbs could have been a tactic used to help keep the citizens of Detroit in line. Young's vocal presence kept voters in line, keeping suburbanites out with racial rhetoric and degrading other blacks with racial slurs. It wasn't uncommon for Mayor Young to use vulgar language during public speaking. In 1985, the Detroit City Council voted themselves a substantial pay increase and gave Coleman Young a 44% raise in salary, becoming the highest paid mayor in the U.S. while the city of Detroit looks for ways to survive financially. The FBI conducted several extensive investigations into Mayor Coleman Young's activities, with no compelling conclusions. Following the death of Mayor Young, the city of Detroit rewarded his unprecedented service by naming several buildings and areas after him, part of which includes the Coleman A. Young Municipal Building and the Coleman A. Young Community Center. Mayor Dennis Archer, elected in the mid-1990s, was able to attract new businesses, double or triple the value of many homes and businesses, and embraced the suburbs. He was a mayor who acted like a mayor, who understood the duties of a mayor, who looked out for the interests of the city, its citizens, and its suburban neighbors. The job Mayor Archer did was probably too good. People in the city of Detroit must have felt there was something wrong with him, becoming critical of his efforts and may have discouraged him from running for office again. The people of Detroit then elected what could be considered a clone of the former mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick, minus the charisma. In 2005, Detroit newspapers printed a story stating Detroit's Mayor Kwame leased a vehicle for his wife at a cost of $24,995 for 1 year, at the expense of the city of Detroit. This same vehicle was returned to the dealership after its year's lease was up, with 1,556 miles on it. This translates to an astounding $16.06 per mile on a leased vehicle, plus chauffeur and other expenses. It appears that Mayor Kilpatrick's standard of living is more important than the layoff of over 1,000 police officers and layoffs of firefighters, garbage collectors, city personnel, and the closing of almost a third of Detroit's recreation centers. All of this while the city of Detroit pays for a contingent of 21 bodyguards for the mayor during the city's worst budget crisis in its history. Headlines about Mayor Kwame in the Detroit Free Press include Detroit's mayor too wild for DC cops. Mayor Kwame has also been referred to as a person who frequents nightclubs at the taxpayers' expense and had an alleged out-of-control party at the Manuvian Mansion without consideration of the city's poor economic state. An extensive and ongoing investigation into the activities of Mayor Kwame is currently being conducted by the FBI.